What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? You want to talk NX? We're going to continue to talk about NX, of course, because we can't stop and we won't stop. And I want to talk about something that no one else is really talking about. You know, you talk about all your controllers, all you want, your motion controllers. I talked about that 6 months ago. You all know that by now. But one thing we need to talk about NX, and one thing NX needs to do. You know what? You know what NX needs to do besides all this other stuff people are talking about? You can solve backwards compatibility issues. That's right, you can solve backwards compatibility issues on consoles, okay? That's one thing NX needs to do. Why and how? Well, let me tell you something. Well, first of all, how long has it been now since Android and the App Store have been out? Well, I think it was 2007. I could be wrong. Smack me in the butt if I am. Tell me what year it was, but it's about like 10 years now. Because I remember, man, my first Android phone was the MyTouch. No, that was the second one. The G1. The G1. Who, Motorola? It was the G1 phone, though, and that was, I think, the first Android phone that I've seen. But, I mean, we're talking almost 10 years ago, okay, or 8, something. You get the point, right? So, why am I talking about the App Store? Why am I talking about Android? It's because those platforms have solved backwards compatibility for almost 10 years now, like I said, okay, right? Because I forgot where I mentioned it, but you got Angry Birds, right? I downloaded Angry Birds 10 years ago, tried it out, and I could still download Angry Birds today on the phone I have now. And we're like, how many phones later? At least, I don't know, 5 phones later? All this time later, I could still download Angry Birds if I wanted to on a completely different phone, completely different generation, completely different year, okay? So, NX, we all know by now, it's probably going to be, like I said in the last NX video I did, an ecosystem reveal. And that's one thing it needs to be, an ecosystem, because if everything is right, you know, you're going to be able to buy your NX home console, you're going to be able to buy your NX handheld, you're going to be able to play NX, or you're going to be able to play Nintendo in whatever way you want to, right? And that's great. That's great, and that's what needs to happen. The backwards compatibility issues need to end. There's no reason why I have to buy a different version of the same game 10 times. You know what I'm saying? Even if, you know, on Wii U they gave you a discount if you bought the same game on Wii, but still, it's like all these other platforms have been dealing with this issue for so long, and they've solved this issue for so long. And I know PC gamers, you guys, you know, you could buy another PC, and you could just, you know, as long as you download the Steam app, or the Steam program, or the Steam whatever, you could download your games, no matter what PC you play on. If you know, you get 3 new PCs down the road, you could still just download Steam, and then you got all your games right there, okay? Steam does it, and they deal with console type AAA games and all kinds of games, right? Android, Apple does it, and that's the route that Xbox is going down, right? Xbox Play Anywhere, and now Sony is they're starting to get into PC, where they're bringing PlayStation Now to PC. You know, all these guys need to be platforms, okay? And they need to make console, they need to make whatever way you want to play. I mean, Sony, Xbox, they should make a handheld too. Whatever way you want to play Xbox games, you can. You know what I'm saying? But Nintendo has a fresh start, and they could start out doing it right. Now, you might say, what about the cartridges, though? Because, you know, NX is supposed to have cartridges and stuff like that. And, you know, like you say, a better word is game cards, right? Because obviously not going to be cartridges. You think of, like, you know, old cartridges from back in the day, where they were kind of, I guess you could say, well, big compared to today, but the NX is going to have game cards, right? Like all the systems do today. So, you know, probably thin and stuff like that, small. And like I said before, the NX could have a 3DS player, and that's one thing they could boast right from the start. They could, like they did in the past, you know, I forgot what system it was for, but they would basically say, oh, you know, right off the bat, you have a library of hundreds or thousands of games because you can play this system on the console. So that's another thing they could boast. And like I've said before, take, what's the smallest version of a 3DS? 2DS, I believe, right? Whatever it is. Take away the screen, take away the casing, and all that other stuff, and you just have the core inside stuff that runs the games. The 3DS technology is small. They could definitely fit that into easily, even if it's the NX handheld, okay? And the 3DS cards are small, no problem there. So with NX, the cards are going to be so small that you can have those kind of card readers, or just keep that same size of cards for all your future Nintendo systems, and there you go, you have that issue solved also. So this is one thing NX needs to tackle. You want to make a big stink, you want to make a big wave? Nintendo, solve the backwards compatibility issues with consoles. Be people's hero in that retrospect, and that will be a big deal, and it'll be awesome, because then everyone could have all their Nintendo stuff in one place, and that's Nintendo's goal. They don't want to separate people anymore. They don't want to say, oh, to play these games, you got to buy the game and a whole nother, chunk of money for this system. Oh, you want to play these games? Buy the game and a whole chunk of money for this system. No, they've integrated everything. We've known that for a long time. They've integrated their teams into one building, and this is the route they're going down. And even we said, Iwata said it back in the day, way before we knew anything, that the NX is going to be an ecosystem of stuff. They even showed that thing. Well, they showed it for you could sign into your Nintendo account on anything, on your Wii U, on your console, on NX, on the computer. But I'm sure, just like everybody else, like Steam, like Apple, like Android, like Xbox now even, this is the route they want to go down, because imagine that they can say, imagine they could combine the sales of 3DS and Wii U. Imagine it was one system, and all of a sudden the Wii U sales wouldn't be so bad, right? They can say, oh, our NX systems have sold this much, because 3DS has sold, what, 40 million? Wii U has sold about 11 million. So you got like 51 million right there, and they could say our Nintendo family of systems have sold. It sounds a lot better than, oh, our handheld's doing great, but our system's not doing great. And like I've talked about in the past also, that guy that doesn't have time anymore because he's got some crazy job that demands him to be on the go maybe all the time. He doesn't have time to sit down and play a console system maybe, but he remembers Nintendo games. I use Luigi's Mansion as an example. I said, that guy who back in the day played Luigi's Mansion on GameCube, now maybe he has a crazy job and stuff, or he's always traveling. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon or 2, whatever you want to call it, benefits him because he could play it on his 3DS and while he's on the train and stuff like that. But say Luigi's Mansion 3 comes out on Wii U, and he's going to be like, shit, I wish I could play it. They want to avoid that. They want to avoid that person that could say, man, I wish I could play that game, but I don't have time to play in that way. So Nintendo, one thing no one's talking about, backwards compatibility issues need to be eradicated. They need to be gone, a thing in the past, not even talked about anymore, not even a subject that should be brought up in the future. And also, when I hear supplemental computing devices, things you can plug into this system that could run on their own basically and contribute to the base system, all those rumors were going around. Why can't you sell us a GameCube, a Nintendo 64, a Super Nintendo, add-ons, things we could plug into this thing, okay? Solve the backwards compatibility issue that way too, because you don't have to worry about losing sales, because you gotta understand that there's games that you can never get on a Nintendo Virtual Console, because they were licensed games, meaning, only for that certain amount of time they were, signed on to be sold, or they have the name or the rights to sell the name, like GoldenEye, or sports games or something. Say you had a favorite Madden, favorite, NBA 2K game, or back then NBA Live, or just a movie game from the past that you loved. Sell us smaller little versions of these systems that we could add on to it. You have to have everything Nintendo in one space. Because I bet you if they came out with modern, they're selling the NES Mini. Imagine they came out with modern NESs, people would fucking buy them, because how many NESs out there, the old NESs had a problem with if you beat them up too much. So make a modern NES that could play cartridges, because there's people out there buying NES games all the time. And how many people out there are buying Retrons, the Retron 5, and all this stuff to play, that has slots for NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and I think the new ones even have Game Boy in them and stuff, and they have the controller attachments too. Nintendo, sell your own version of the Retron, because look how many people are buying the Retrons now. Sell your own version of the Retron where, say you don't want to sell each individual one, or maybe you do because you want to make more money, I don't know, but sell a Nintendo Retron that plays NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, original Game Boy, right? And then sell another version that plays disc style games, so you can play GameCube, Wii, Wii U, right? If you're talking about supplemental computing devices and all those rumors around them, things you could plug into the system that can run and have their own, livelihood, sell us these things also, because there's a whole market out there of people buying this stuff. The market of people buying old games is huge. The market of people buying the Retron is huge. If you could do supplemental computing devices, this should not be an issue, and we want it, and we would eat it up. And even though you might not be making money on an old NES cartridge that we're buying from a retro gaming expo or something, or yard sales, you're still making money because, like I said, those games that you can never see again, that people want to play legit versions of, because not every ROM is perfect. That's the only way a lot of people can play old games that they can't get access to today, is through ROMs. You know what I mean? People would love to have play the real version, the cartridge version, the way the game was supposed to run. So people will still give you money to buy this thing to play a game that they couldn't buy from you today. You know what I'm saying? No matter what Nintendo system you're playing on, you should be able to download your games. And these cards, these game cards, are so small that any Nintendo system should be able to have slots for those also, and plus room for a 3DS slot if they can do that and they have the two screens. But theoretically, there is room for both, so there is no excuse anymore to have backwards compatibility issues. And Nintendo, you want to do something big when NX? Solve the console's issue with backwards compatibility. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joey JCM, and soon enough, man, we are going to get some real Nintendo NX news from Nintendo. It's been so long, we've been talking about this for so long, it almost feels like, is it really going to happen? You know, like, is it actually, are they going to do this, But supposedly they are. And September is not that far away, and of course they're gonna make us suffer, and it's gonna be the end of September probably. Watch, it's gonna be fucking like September 30th. They're gonna make us fucking be all excited that September is here, and then all of a sudden, oh, you gotta wait a whole another month practically, almost October. But let me know what you think, because I think this is something that no matter what you want to talk about, that this needs to happen. This is another thing that NX needs to do, that needs to happen. Backwards compatibility needs, well, the issues of it need to be eradicated. That's it for now, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you, hopefully, earlier in September for some NX news. Later. Wow! Woo! Woo!